Hey guys, you might have that experience where your heart says one thing and your head says another, and you find yourself trapped between your heart and your head. You're told to follow your heart, but also to use your head. So we'll be talking about how you can get your heart and your head to work together in a meaningful way so that there's much less inner conflict and you feel like a cohesive, peaceful whole. So let's get started. Now, I bet you've all had this experience before in which you have to go to this emotionally charged event for you, whether it's a big job interview or a date or an exam that you have to take, or you need to meet someone that you just dislike or don't enjoy the company of, but you have to meet them anyway, that you really want to get reasonable and sensible about it. You want to be able to go through with it, keep a straight face, and just suck it up. But then it's so hard because your emotions are getting in a way, whether it's anxiety or sadness or anger about the situation. And the more you try to force the reasoning kind of process, the harder it becomes. Even if you try to reason through your feelings, that doesn't seem to work. It just seems like your head is forcing your heart to feel a certain kind of way, but your heart is not truly buying it. And the funny thing is that the best way to take care of a situation like this is to actually give space, completely give space for your emotions to voice themselves before the event. And for some reason, it works really well because you get that emotional release and suddenly it seems much easier to use your head. When you allow your emotions to clear first, for some reason, it becomes easier for you to be reasonable and sensible in approaching this situation. When you try to force yourself to use your head, for some reason, it becomes harder to use your head. Now, what I'm telling you may seem ironic. I'm basically telling you to do the opposite of what you expect yourself to do. You're expecting yourself to dive into this stressful situation with a sensible and reasonable kind of mindset. But in order to do that, you actually need to put your reasoning aside for now and allow your emotions to vent. And when you can give space for those emotions, even allow yourself to cry before the event, when you get to the event itself, it actually becomes easier. Because when you don't do that, what makes it hard is that when you are engaged in the activity, your emotions are fighting you every step of the way, slowing you down. So the reason why this works is not what people think. What people think is you have your emotions and the emotions are something you want to get out of the way so that your head could come in. And this is a very popular belief, whether people are more rationally inclined or emotionally inclined, is to get your emotions out of the way. The reason why this works is that your emotions speak to your needs in a way that reasoning cannot. And then your reasoning can come in to help you address those needs. But if you try to reason through your needs, it can only do so superficially. When it comes to emotionally valent event, if you allow yourself to vent your emotions beforehand, if you really pay attention to the process, you'll find that you're not simply releasing the emotion, you're actually allowing the emotions to understand what your needs are. And when you get in touch with this process more, you'll find that emotions are just as valuable as reason. As a great psychotherapist, Dr. Judy Ho, said, emotions are not something to deal with, but a vehicle to well-being. When I work with clients, I find two different types. Some are more rationally inclined, they're very sensible, they're reasonable, and they try to find some sort of structure to move themselves forward. And others are more emotional. And what I find is that the rational type does not necessarily move forward more than the emotional type. They get stuck because they're not in touch with that emotionally processing side. That's something that they need more. And there's other clients who are more emotional, but because they allow for that emotional processing, for some reason that allows them to move forward because they're able to release that emotional energy. And also by allowing themselves to emotionally process, they can tap into their own needs at a fundamental level. At the same time, they get stuck in their own way because they get reactive and self-absorbed, and they're not listening to their rational side at all. And the people who are rational, they get stuck in their head. People do try to bring their head and their heart together, but in a way that may not seem meaningful, or in a way that is unhealthy and superficial. And we've all been here before. I've been here myself before. And these usually take two forms. It either takes the form of the mind subjugating the heart, or the form of the heart subjugating the mind. And when the mind subjugates the heart, how you experience that is that it feels like your thoughts, your rationale is stifling your emotions and invalidating it while attempting to superficially address whatever your needs are. Your needs feel invalidated, even though it seems like you are trying to address it. And when it comes to your heart subjugating your mind, what happens is that reasoning is twisted in order to fit with whatever your heart wants and however your heart wants to be validated. But you never really feel truly validated, and your emotions seem out of control. When a heart tries to subjugate our mind, what happens is that we pull any sort of reason we can to justify how we are feeling in order to validate our feeling, but in the end, we don't really end up validating ourselves truly. There is a meaningful and helpful way to bring the heart and the mind together, and this is what dialectical behavioral therapy calls the wise mind. When we could tap into our wise mind, when we could tap into our intuition, what happens is that we could separate ourselves from our processes of thinking and feeling and observe them, become the observer to these processes. And then we allow our thinking side to fully give voice to itself and express itself. And we allow our feeling side to fully express itself and give voice to itself. And when we could do that, we could have a meaningful dialogue between thinking and feeling in which they're not trying to fight each other, but trying to resolve something together. What Carl Jung has stated is that where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between feeling and thinking. When I'm talking about the wise mind and being a separate observer, I do not mean being unfeeling towards your thoughts and feelings. Rather, you're actually tapping into higher levels of thinking and feeling when you are in this wise mind state. You're showing empathy towards your thinking and feeling processes, and you're also showing thoughtful consideration towards your thinking and feeling processes. What you find is that one brings more depth to the other. So as I said, this is not some sort of superficial way to compromise between these two sides. Rather, when you could have a meaningful discussion between your thoughts and your feelings, what you find is that your reasoning is sounder with feeling, and emotions are more sincere and authentic with reasoning. So your thinking becomes a more legitimate version of itself, and your feeling also becomes a more real version of itself. When you allow these sides to take turns taking the lead instead of having one subjugate the others, it prevents superficiality. And of course, besides thinking and feeling furthering each other's aims, they also balance each other. Feeling allows thinking to know what needs are being unmet, and thinking brings clarity and understanding to emotions. But when they work together, both help you to understand what you are striving for at a deeper level. If you found this video enjoyable and helpful, what I appreciate and find helpful is if you could like and subscribe. It allows this video to go out to a larger audience. Thank you so much for watching.